Kelly.
Hey Hayley.
We have got season two, episode six, and Jenny Carter joining us. Jenny is a PR and communications consultant, an award-winning PR and communications consultant that you have known for many, many years.
Yes. Jenny and I used to work at a university together. She'd been there some time before I joined, and she was just, I mean, you'll pick up on her energy. She was like the most beautiful, bubbly soul in the PR team back then. And she went solo less than a year ago. And when I found out, I was like, right, we need to have a coffee because she's just beautiful. She's, yeah, lovely. So I'm excited for the conversation.
Brilliant. And today we're talking to her about turning reviews into results.
Yeah,
So let's do it.
testimonials.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
let's
Let's get
go.
started. Thanks so much for joining us, Jenny, for this episode. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience and tell everyone who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jenny Carter. I am a PR and communications consultant. I've worked in PR for over 14 years, both in-house and in agency across B2B and B2C sectors. And I decided to set up on my own last year. So it's not even a year of trading for me yet, but I'm absolutely loving it.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons why we asked you to be on here, like more so for like your startup journey. And I guess we both know, like we've come from marketing backgrounds anyway, but when you're doing your own business, it's kind of turns it all on its head a little bit, doesn't it? And like opens your eyes up to how you're marketing yourself and yeah, everything that there is to do with that as well.
Absolutely. And I feel like I've thrived and I've loved that part of it. I've always wanted to set up on my own. And
Yeah.
then last year, I just decided to bite the bullet and go for it. I think you need that experience in-house in an agency to be able to set up alone. And I've always worked really closely with marketing teams. So I've been able to learn and guide them. I feel like, there's power in platforms. And whenever I've done like big campaigns, we've all come together. And doing it myself, I have really enjoyed it because it's learning, right?
Yeah.
I've been in PR for 14 years and there's still growth and the industry's changing so much and there's still a lot to learn. I'm not naive in thinking that. But setting up on my own, doing all of my marketing, and there's always more I could be doing. But I've got to prioritize my clients and also work-life balance, which is part of the reason why I set up my own.
Yeah. How did you, so what was like your plan? Do you know, like when you decided that you was going solo, because to be honest, I remember when I started 3 years ago, I don't think I had like a marketing plan in place. I was just
No.
like relying on my own brain for it. And yeah, did you have one or like what was your thinking around your own marketing?
Well, I'm quite a perfectionist. So in my head, I was going to set up in September once the kids got back to school. I was going to have the summer off. But I changed my LinkedIn in the June to say that I was setting up as a consultant. And I just haven't looked back ever since, which I feel so lucky. So it kind of happened by accident. In an ideal world, I would have set up, I had a loose business plan, but I would have set up a strategic business plan with a marketing plan. And I feel like everything can't always be perfect. You've just got to roll with it, which isn't necessarily my personality. I like things to be, very organized and have a plan. But it all worked out kind of by accident. I mean, I got my first client. It was like, oh my gosh, I need to set up formally and I need to set up business banking. They kept chasing me for an invoice. I was like, oh. So I was really lucky in that respect. And I feel like I've learned and grown along the way. Nothing's ever going to be done or perfect. There's still haven't got a website, and part of me is mortified because I know I need one, but then the other part of me is like, well, I've got enough clients right now. I'm having is there cat coming? I'm having a shoot in April, a brand shoot, and then maybe that'll give me the kick up the bum that I need to get a website. But right now,
Yeah.
no client's ever said to me, where's your website? Like everyone just seems to go to my LinkedIn. And once you get those initial conversations and calls and have a proposal, they're seeing you anyway. So of course a website is key and it will come, but nothing happens overnight. It all just takes time. And sometimes that's hard to accept because I like everything done yesterday.
Yeah. And I think one of the first conversations I had with someone that was doing something similar to us, a few years ago was they didn't have a website either. Like they started just purely from using LinkedIn. And I guess the title of this podcast as well, like the work that they've done with certain clients or from corporate days, they were taking their feedback, their reviews that they had, and they found that that in itself was the thing that help them to get new clients and convert. And yeah, that's, I guess, social proof, isn't it, in a way?
Definitely. And when I first started out, obviously I didn't working with a client for a month. I didn't want to say, "Can you give me feedback? It's way too early." I spoke to a lot of people I'd worked with at Green King, for example, and asked for their feedback and reviews on LinkedIn. And then gradually with clients, as I've done projects and they've come to a completion, or and it's for me, it's great to get that feedback. And it's helped really shape my values and my business and who I want to be, because that's the feedback they're giving me. And I think great, because that's who I want to be, which I suppose is a little bit backwards, but we are where we are. But also the feedback that I get. So every end of month, I have a call with each client where we go through the results and then we go through what we're doing the following month.
Yeah.
And I always end with a check-in, like, how are things going? And lately I had a hospitality business where she said to me, Jenny, it's January. I need you to just work with me to try and push some sales to get some leads in for the rest of the year. January's so quiet for us. And, I've been in hospitality sector my whole career. So I know January, it's totally normal. So let's forecast and plan for Q2 when spring springs. She said to me last week, sales have increased massively. Now, I'm not going to go and put that on LinkedIn, because that's a conversation we've had, and she probably doesn't want her competitors to know that she struggled. But let's be honest, everyone in hospitality is in January. So it's a different kind of feedback, isn't it? It's that feedback that is everyone can see, and it's great, and it's lovely to get that. But also sometimes you want that kind of not critical feedback, but so that you can grow and learn, because otherwise you can kind of go round in circles a little bit. So I think it's really important to be able to get that feedback. I think, was it Bill Gates that said, we all need people to give us feedback, that's how we improve.
Yeah.
So obviously you don't want someone going on and being like, "Oh, she was awful," which hopefully they'd never say.
And I guess my head was like turning reviews into results is from a marketing perspective, but it's an internal thing as well, isn't it? Like it's the customer service element of which, and customer service for me is part of your marketing anyway. So it kind of goes full circle. You can take reviews into results from different angles, really, can't you?
Definitely. And like, I always did it in house or in agency, where I had like a PDR folder. So you get that dreaded PDR where you go in and say, "How are you doing?" But you need evidence. So I always had a folder where I'd put things over, and I've carried that into my freelance life. Partly because sometimes you get this imposter syndrome where you think, "Am I doing a good job?" There is no PDR, there is none of that. I can see the results from clients, but it's not always just about results, is it? It's about character and wanting to work with someone. And a few weeks back, a client invited me to a team away day, and it was kind of the biggest compliment. I felt like, "Oh wow, I actually feel like I'm not just a freelancer, like I'm part of your team." And that's really nice. So yeah, it's different ways of feedback, isn't it? And it's how you collate that. And then if you're having a bit of a rubbish day and you think, "Am I good at what I do?" You could just look at that folder and be like, "All right, I'm okay."
I'm doing all right. Yeah.
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 How do you work your reviews, Hayley? Like, how have you done it over the years? Hayley's way ahead of us, by the way, Jenny. Like
How long
You
have you been
say
doing it,
that.
Hayley?
8 years?
So I went freelance in June 2017. So coming up for 9 years. Um, and you say I'm way ahead of it. I still get the imposter syndrome. I still need that little PDR folder to look through every now and again to kind of give me that reassurance, because when it's just you, I think it's really hard to coach you as a small business owner. You have to, use everything you've got to sort of keep going some days, because it can be quite solitary. But in terms of my reviews, I've been given testimonials without having to ask, which I think is the biggest compliment. That's like amazing for me. I usually ask a client when the contract ends. But because I work month to month with businesses, sometimes those contracts run for 2, 3 years. So I may not actually get a testimonial. So what I've started to do now is sort of halfway through say, would you mind just, write me a testimonial? Would love it. The longevity means I wouldn't be able to ask you for many more years. So I use them on website, on LinkedIn. And I think you're right. It gives people not just that reassurance that you're doing a good job, but it gives people an insight into who you are. And more recently, I've been putting out just little one-liners that people have added at the end of a call or in an email or have put, on Slack that doesn't need a formal testimonial. Just that one-liner not only makes me feel warm and fuzzy, but actually gives someone else that same kind of feeling and introduction to how I could help them. So yeah, no hard and fast rule really. But I suppose it's my role is more working with businesses to try and get the data from the work that they do with their clients to then
Yes.
translate that into testimonials and case studies that supports client retention, business
Yeah.
development, and client advocacy. So yeah, my stuff tends to just get put to one side.
Yeah. And that's the other angle of it as well, isn't it? Is the work that you're doing, the review of the client and then the impact that client's having on other people. That I find that the hardest bit to grab. And I don't know if it's because it's marketing and that can be tricky sometimes to like fully track through. Um, but like when do you have that conversation with a client to have to get that if you're not in a contract with them already? If they've if it's ended, like do you dip back in like a few months later or like how do you do that?
Feel like you can dip back in a few months later and you just never know when they're going to need support and work again. And I think there's nothing wrong with asking for it if they say they're too busy or no.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing that, I mean, when I first started, I was a little bit reluctant to even contact businesses for work. And then I just thought, what's the worst that can happen? They say no, or no, I've already got a PR agency. And now, like, I spend half of my life at children's parties. So even when I'm at children's parties at the weekend, I talk to people about what they do and I think, oh, right, well, I'm a PR and communications consultant. But not only that, like, I feel like you can learn so much from people. Like, when I started out, I would talk to anyone who had a business. I remember having a good half an hour chat with my window cleaner. I mean, it's nothing to do with the sector I work in, but he's a freelancer too. There's so much that you can learn from, everyone and the power of networking. You just don't know who you're going to stumble across and what nuggets of information you might get from them.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. I've always said like that just having those like one-to-one conversations is the best thing. And you're right, just asking, like, yeah, what's the worst that can happen? Um, do you have a like a process on once you've collected up reviews, like what's your thoughts, Jenny, in terms of that like PDR folder that you've got? Like if website, socials, are you going to keep them all for yourself? Like how are you going to share the reviews that you're getting? And like, have you got a plan in place of how
Yeah.
you would do
So
that?
I tend to keep them in a folder and then I'll share them across my LinkedIn. But then also when I'm doing proposals for clients at the end, I put them in there as well so that they can get a feel of actually what it's like working with me. So it's a case of working them as hard as possible. And like Hayley says, it might be that you pick out a sentence that day, or it might be that it's the end of a quarter. So I'll do like a quarterly review where I'll say, it's feedback from clients. And absolutely what you said again, Hayley, it's not just about them doing a formal form or anything. They're really busy. If they've said it at the end of a call and it's nothing that's commercially sensitive, I just check with them and say, oh, can I use that? And, they've always been happy for me to. So, because to me, it's great for someone to say, you've done a great job, you've done an amazing job. But it's the character that they add to that, like I'm easy to work with or I'm motivated and highly driven. That's part of my core values and who I am. And that for me then feels like, oh, they get who I am and they understand me. It's great to know you've done a great job, but getting more feedback and even results. Like, when you look at LinkedIn, I do quite a few clients LinkedIn, you can see the results. You can see when they've added more days to their LinkedIn, and then you can actually see, right, we've grown your page by X amount this period, for example, because that's really tangible when you've got actual results. And a lot of my clients want to do case studies, and they'll say how they've worked with a business and it's benefited them, but I'm always saying it's great to say that, but we need those tangible results. That's what journalists and people want. They want to know you've grown their business by 30% as a result of working with them, for example.
Yeah. And from a PR perspective as well, then, are you looking at any specific like reviews to results? Do you do anything different there that like is going to shape the way that you work your own business? Do you pull
Yeah,
from different results?
yeah. So it's $1 million question in PR, measuring PR. I've been on every course, from CIPR about measurement, and it's a really tricky one. And what I always do when I start working with a client is, what do you want to get from PR? What do the results look like? And what do you want to see in your end of month? Is it that you want to see circulation and volume of coverage and reach? Or is it really important to be in those specific trade titles with your key messages and your key spokesperson? So it goes back to that, and every client has different views on what they want in terms of measurement. And it can be really tricky, because if you look at social and you've got an e-commerce website, you can directly relate those sales back. With PR, it is really tricky. Yes, we could have a piece in the Telegraph that has a backlink, but backlinks are becoming few and far between now. Like the Express won't even include a backlink. So it's harder to tell that story. And part of the reward for me as well is taking clients on the journey, and not in a patronizing way, but educating them on PR, because the landscape changes so much. And it isn't just a case of sending out a press release and guaranteeing that coverage. It's editorial, it's not advertorial. So yeah, it's taking them on that journey and seeing those results and coming together, but also working with their social team and their marketing team. Things don't work in silo, it all comes together.
Will you will you plan to do some like bulky case studies? Hayley and I were actually talking about case studies before this call, actually, for recording. But yeah, like will you really like focus on more case study work for, like really bringing those reviews through and being able to show that full picture, that like full transformation picture of how you work and
data and
there's so much there, isn't there, for you to get across? And
Yeah.
I think sometimes the little one-liner testimonials, they don't always tell that big picture, do they? So if small business owners can focus on the full story, that's normally what I recommend for people to do. Is that something that you'll focus on, do you think?
Definitely. And coming up to the summer will be a year that I've set up, and it'll be a year with some of my clients. And what I want to do is exactly that, a case study on the website, just with more detail and more of the approach, the planning, the implementation, not just one liner, like how we got from here to here. Because I did a post last week actually on my LinkedIn about PR. It isn't a short game, it's a long game. People want PR to turn the dial now. It doesn't. It's about building that brand awareness. It's about using those keywords to build the narrative about your brand and who you are, and what you stand for. So I wouldn't want to do a case study for like after a month, because I don't feel like it's going to turn the dial. A year, we're going to see we've turned the dial in some way, shape, or form, and we can build that picture together of what that's looked like and the journey that we've been on. And there's still a way to go. It's not just about getting one piece in the Telegraph and you close that book and PR's done. It's continuing that. And I think there's an education piece around that. Sometimes people just think, oh, we've got it right now, we'll move on. And yeah, the links stay live and that's great, but it's keeping that momentum going.
I find that really interesting and reassuring to hear from the PR side, because one of the challenges that I have working with clients who are small business owners, of understanding the difference between long-term brand building and marketing and business development and sales conversions, in that marketing supports that lead in and those opportunities and builds those openings, but it doesn't happen overnight. And you're looking at a minimum of 6 to 9 months of consistent messaging and brand building. So to hear that you have this, the same thing, that it's not just a one and done approach, I think it's hard to convey that, because I think people think, well, what am I getting for my money? Because I'm not getting a sale, or I'm not getting this, that, and the other, when actually it can take a year. And some clients are actually coming back to me now after a year and going, we get it. We totally get it. Let's keep going. We're now seeing the results. But it almost takes that faith in you, and that trust that what you're saying isn't stringing them along. It does take that amount of time to build that story.
Absolutely. And it's not just working in silo, it's working with those other platforms and channels as
Mm,
well. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, PR alone will not drive your sales. It
mm,
won't. It's about brand awareness in order to drive those sales. When you're comparing two separate products, but you've seen, excuse me, a campaign from one brand, and you know that they've got great ESG initiatives, that they've got a great charity partnership, that they align to the values who you are as a person, you're more likely to go with that one, and you might pay a higher price point, for example. But I never go in with a pitch and say PR is going to turn the dial financially instantly, because I'd be absolutely
mm.
fibbing. And I've been the side where when I was in-house, agencies would come in and pitch, and I've been there when they've said it, and I've just thought, you've lost me now,
No.
because you're over promising. And I prefer to have these open and honest conversations and take them on that path than try and get people in on potentially a fib.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's that point then, like going back to the case studies, isn't there? That they, again, like you can take the like reviews into results, if we're using that line today, into that more educational piece of content, and really be able, like you can really tell that story through those case studies, can't you?
Definitely.
So it's, yeah, like the results that you are getting, it again, that can form different purposes for
Mm.
if you're working with someone new, educating them on PR, or the work that you actually do. You can weave in the work that you are doing, your character, past client work. There's a whole heap of like boxes to be ticked there in a case study, isn't there?
Mm.
Definitely. And I just pin them to the top of my LinkedIn so that as soon as people go on my page, they can see them and they get a feel for what it's like to work with me.
Yeah. Do
Mm.
you do you go straight to LinkedIn? Is like that your priority at the minute, or do you get like Google reviews or
No,
anything?
LinkedIn is absolutely my priority at the moment. Once I start with my website, then I will. But right now, I'm trying not to do too much. Like, it's just me. I do 4 days. There's so much more I could be doing. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not naive in thinking that I'm ticking every box. But for me, it's about that school pickup, and it's about happiness, and it's about balance. So in time, yes. But right now, and I'm seeing great results through LinkedIn. I'm really happy with the leads that I get through. So right now, that's the main platform that I'm focusing on. But that's not that the other platforms won't work, or I'd say don't use them, because they absolutely do. But right now, it's just little me, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, and that's the point that
That's
we've,
sensible.
yeah, definitely. And we've made that point in the last few episodes, really. We've spoken about like if to outsource, if to DIY, if to like invest budget in certain spaces. And
Mm.
the thing that we keep coming back to is like less is more, and that whole quality over quantity across channels, and the amount that you can actually manage as a small business owner, solo entrepreneur, is it's based on how you feel and what works for you and your lifestyle as well. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I feel like Hayley, you do that really well still, even after all this
I
time.
try.
Yeah, you
I
do.
try. I
Yeah.
try and retain the values and the reason why I'm self-employed. And I think until you until you become self-employed, you don't understand the stress that comes with it. It's totally different stress than being an employed role. And so my work-life harmony and setting my boundaries and only doing what I know I can do and keep consistency with is really important to me. But sometimes that slips. Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah.
Think it can become really hard because you see social media and like you compare. Like my PT says, her motto is it's you versus you. And
Mhm.
sometimes I feel like I really need to remember that with my business, because yeah, I can set up my website and I can do a blog and I can do a newsletter, and they're all things that I would love to do. But right now I don't have the capacity. So maybe in time it will come, and I just have to remember why I set up and my core values, and I'm ultimately paying my bills and I'm happy. So,
Yeah.
but it's hard when I'm a very driven person. I always want more. So it's hard to get that balance, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's that point
Yeah.
of when like it's not incomplete because you don't have a website. Like you're doing it. Like
Yeah.
the main thing is the customer service and like you say, your values and getting your message out there in a way that works for you. And you've had the clients come in. So that's the ultimate goal there, isn't it? And you're figuring out a way of making sure that that client voice comes through in your content, like you're doing it. So if you had a website, like how much would it change?
Yeah. I just
Wow.
like to be ultra critical of myself.
There's a theme here, Jenny. I feel like you need to
You've
ask
got
your
enough.
clients for some like absolute critical reviews. That's do
Oh,
that.
turning to counselling. I'm sorry.
I know what you mean though. Like, do you know when if they say good things, you're like, no, just give me something
Yeah.
to like, give me something to work on.
I'll
Like,
give it to myself.
yeah, you do that to yourself. Yeah, you don't
I
need.
think it's always, I think for me, it's the disadvantage of being a perfectionist and being passionate about doing something really well all of the time is that you either, if you can't give it 100% perfection, is the imposter syndrome creeps in and you go, well, I can't do that, or I don't want to do that. And that's when we rely on the feedback or someone to boost us or to coach us, because if we can't do it 100%, we don't want to do it, not because we don't want to do it, but it's because we can't do it to the best of our abilities. And then we think, well,
Yeah,
what's wrong with us? And it's a vicious circle. And I found this a lot from being self-employed, this kind of perfectionist role, and yeah, that imposter syndrome that kicks in.
yeah. And for me, like being when I was in corporate
Critical
role,
stuff.
we had we we had enough like feedback that wasn't always the best delivered. So like, let's take the good stuff. And I find that
Yeah.
like clients often, because with PR particularly, it's if it's an unknown area, but people they know that they need to do it, but they don't know how to do it themselves. The fact that you can come in and deliver it, educate them, get them views, like it's gonna like it'll blow their mind because
Yeah.
you can make so much impact so quickly that they wouldn't ever be able to do by themselves. And yeah, that's huge for businesses.
Definitely. And I think the sweet spot that I've found is I've worked for quite big businesses before. So they get PR, and they expect they've got really high standards. And it's like, well, we have this brand, we know who this brand is, everyone knows who this brand is. So surely we should be getting, hundreds of pieces of coverage, and that the bar's already here. Whereas a lot of the businesses I'm working with are smaller businesses who perhaps haven't done PR before. So you're taking them on that journey. And it's not just about getting press releases and sending that out. It's so much more. So I love taking them on that journey and seeing how they then grow and develop and really, and a lot of people can feel, not scared, but yeah, I suppose a little bit scared of journalists, which I totally get as well. So yeah, it's great to take them on that journey and show them the before and after and see the leads come in from the activation.
I
They
think as well,
take the
people
positive
don't.
back.
Sorry, Cal.
They just
What I think.
yeah. You go.
Um, I think the education piece is so key, and I only know a small amount about PR in comparison to you. But you're almost talking to a different audience than your usual marketing audience, in that you have the relationships with the journalists, with the other PR agencies, or those that run the editorial, and it's a different audience that you're trying to communicate with. And that alone, I think, is an education piece in itself that can overwhelm a business owner, because it's not just an extension of marketing, it's actually a separate channel that integrates with marketing.
And people don't get, you can't book PR. It's not advertising. I can't guarantee you a place in the Telegraph.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also it can be really challenging because sometimes someone will come to you and say, I've got this great story, and you get all excited and you think, oh, come on, what is it? And they say, and then you think, okay, that's great. but it's potentially not.
Yeah.
It's not really, what is the new news? And while you as a business shout about it and it's amazing, let's do PR through internal comms. But for it to be, people need to relate to it. It needs to be new news. It's not just a case of, so that's a really challenging conversation to say, that's great. However, the wider world are probably not going to care. So in order for them to care, we need to do this, this, and this. And then you take them on that journey and they get it. Or some people are just like, just get it out, just get it out. Why didn't it get coverage? And it's taken me time in my career now. Like, if I don't think it will land, I won't just do a press release, because I'm wasting your time, I'm wasting my time, and I look stupid to a journalist, So it's having those conversations that can sometimes be a little bit challenging and uncomfortable. But when people build that trust and they know that you know what they're talking about, and they can always share that news on LinkedIn and through internal comms, because they want to shout about it, which is great. It's just choosing the right platform.
That makes sense. It feels like a tough job though, PR.
It is marketing. Everyone's job's hard. But I do say to people when I started my career, it's PR, not ER. Because honestly, some people, when I've worked in agencies before and in-house, it is like we're in a hospital. It's like, okay, everyone breathe and calm down. Like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. I did a stint of PR for a year, and it was like the cortisol levels were high for the whole year. Yeah. I know.
I think
Again.
I think people forget as well, it's relationship building. The big thing with your role is maintaining those relationships and that communication, and the kind of who you know as well as what you know, and how you can tell that story. And that's where I think you worth your weight in gold, because you know the contacts and you know the people. I don't think a small business owner can do that on their own. No, they can't.
And that's hard in itself. The landscape has changed so much. When I worked at the University of Derby with Kelly over, was it about 12 years ago now? And we used to do media visits. So we used to go to London and meet with journalists face to face, and we'd do like press packs, and we'd give them hampers, and we'd schmooze them and go for a PR lunch. Now, gosh, it's so much harder. They've just got no time. You're lucky if you get them on the phone. It used to be that there was like 5 journalists to every 1 PR. Now there's 5 PRs to every 1 journalist. But it's making their life easier. So I'm going to give you the copy, the expert comments. I'm going to give it you by the deadline, if not before, with a link to the images. You have everything there. Therefore, you should never have to chase me or say, can I have this or that? Because I've made your life as easy as possible. But I've just had a new client who's in the electrical sector. So it's a totally new journalist to me. But again, it's just building those relationships. They know that they can rely on you for the comments, that you'll be there. So it's okay to still build those relationships from scratch. And journalists change sectors and jobs as well. So but that is a key part of it.
So in summary, ask for the positive reviews and take them is the name of it.
Do that for me.
In summary for you, Jenny. But reviews, you can take the one-liners, definitely find them in emails and those to and fro conversations, rather than make it formal as well. Like, that's always a great space, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Get them out on LinkedIn, we spoke about, but build that bigger story as well, so that you can bring in more of how you worked, why you did things in certain ways, do it through case studies, the results, that full transformation piece as well, is really key. And I really like the little folder, the little PDR folder. That's if any one thing that you can take out of corporate, that was it. That was a good one.
Yeah. And I love it's PR, not ER. That's awesome. I love that.
You'll see that all over my LinkedIn. It's okay. It's okay.
You need a little badge, or that would be a nice little badge.
Well, I specifically don't do crisis comms anymore. So I'll do a crisis comms Bible for clients. So I set up, this is what you do. But it's like, don't call me. I've done that for years. I'm at the park with my kids. It's Saturday.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Mind you,
I
I
care,
think,
but not that much.
yeah, yeah. You can get crisis marketing as well, though, can't you? Those like last minute jobs that need to be done that probably could wait till Monday.
Yeah, good fun.
Good fun. Thank you so much for joining us, Jenny. It's been
Thank you,
Thanks so much for
Jenny.
having me.
a pleasure. Yes, anybody that is listening along, please give us a follow. Go and find Jenny on LinkedIn as well. Give her a follow. And we will see you in the next episode, in episode 7.
See you in episode 7.
Thanks for coming, Jenny.
See
Thanks,
you
Jenny.
later. Bye bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.